I'm interested in continuing to work with entrepreneurs, and what I've found is that companies that are early stage and scrappy are typically don't have budgets, big budgets to hire full-time resources, and so fractional, using fractional CMO sort of resources, I think is an interesting way of growing and developing your business.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, this is Max Pittman from WriteForMe, and you're listening to another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast. We meet the experts who are making things happen and scaling their businesses, and today we're talking about 3 Ways Digital with Trish Barber, who is the founder of 3 Ways Digital. Trish, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So 3 Ways Digital is in the tech marketing space, and the company's been around for about 12 years, so definitely excited to jump into what's going on at 3 Ways Digital. But before we do that, the Business Ninjas community is built of entrepreneurs, executives, and lots of sales and marketing leaders like yourself. So as the founder of 3 Ways Digital, please tell the Business Ninjas community a little bit about yourself, what 3 Ways Digital actually is, and some of the things you're focused on.
Okay, so I've been working in the technology marketing space for a few decades now. And I've been an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. I'm now a writer, and I've always been a digital marketer and a content creator. My company, as you said, is called 3 Ways Digital, and we work with tech companies that are in transition and need to reinvent their marketing program due to some kind of, new transition or evolution. So usually it's a dramatic growth spurt, which can come from a new contract or a merger or an acquisition, some sort of spinoff, or maybe they've received a grant. And they need to quickly ramp up for a new marketing strategy or rethink how they're resourced, and they need access to seasoned people that can help them do that.
Very cool. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but hearing like you're a writer, I know you have a book, you've been in digital marketing for almost a couple decades, right? You've been working with these B2B tech companies. That's all great. So 3 Ways Digital, I'm sure you've imagined being a shark yourself. What would you say 3 Ways Digital, if you're pitching the idea of 3 Ways Digital to a shark, what is the elevator pitch for your organization?
Well, I am I have a pretty diverse background, as I said, entrepreneur, intrapreneur. I've worked with big companies, small companies, and I am pretty good at sort of coming into a new transitional sort of situation and helping them figure out the landscape. So if they need help either with messaging or understanding how to, even do business development, that's kind of where my sweet spot is. Having started a company myself at one point, it's been an interesting and fun. I like spaghetti on the wall, but I'm also really into key performance metrics. So I'm really good at listening to what a company needs and then developing a statement of work or a project around that.
Mm-hmm. So did you start 3 Ways Digital because you saw like a problem in the marketplace, or was it, what's like the origin story, I guess, behind the organization?
Well, my first clients were membership organizations and nonprofits. So, when I did my startup a while back, we were really focused on helping companies. We developed a software as a service platform that helped companies organize their communications to their various constituents. And what I learned from doing that startup, which didn't survive, by the way, but what I learned through that startup experience was that companies, we were so early stage with that idea, companies didn't even know that they needed, kind of that technology or that functionality, and they didn't have people on their teams who knew how to use that. And so they were going to need help. It was pretty obvious that companies were going to need help figuring out how to use digital media tools. And so all the tools, the tech boom that happened in the early aughts, it was easy to kind of see that a business could be built around developing services for companies who are going to need to know how to use all those tools. So my first clients were membership organizations and nonprofits, which kind of came out of the startup experience because that's who we were targeting. My first client, one of my first ones, was a public-private partnership that was hired by the city of Arlington, Virginia. And Arlington wanted to attract entrepreneurs into the area. So they were really interested in becoming the Silicon Valley of the East Coast. And I worked with them to help market Arlington as a friendly space for tech entrepreneurs who were interested in talking to the government. And because Arlington is geographically close to the government, there were a lot of advantages. There were a lot of government agencies out there that were actually interested in helping incubate technology companies without owning the intellectual property around their technology. And so for a lot of reasons, Arlington was a great place to start. And so I started learning a lot about the government because we would create events where, government agencies and representatives from government agencies, CIOs, CSOs, would come in and talk about what their needs were and what technologies they were interested in. And I just started to learn a lot about how they thought and what their challenges were. And it really became interesting to me. The government works on some very cool, very cool projects, and with very big budgets. And while it's a completely different animal marketing to them, it was very interesting to me to be exposed to that through that particular project. So yeah.
So it sounds like you're helping, industries like memberships and organizations, nonprofits, and helping them get their marketing system set up, but also helping, developing their services and making it more accessible for others to visit, right? So would you say that's still your main ideal customer that you're trying to partner with, or has that ideal customer potentially shifted? Like what type of verticals are you looking to partner up with as well?
Well, there was a little shift in there, and the shift happened because having learned a lot about the government through that project that I was working on, I started to target the B2G space. I had an opportunity to start working with a government contracting firm who was looking to set up a new marketing operation after having won a really big contract, and they were going from competing as a small company to a medium-sized company, which put them in a completely different place with the kinds of companies that they were competing against. So they had to have certain marketing systems and communications platforms in place. And so they needed somebody to come in and help them set that up. And I was kind of the perfect person to do that, having kind of been working on both sides of that before. So it's B2B, still B2B and B2G. And I've now been in the B2G space for almost 8 years now. So having gotten my chops in government marketing, that's been kind of fun.
Absolutely. I mean, what would you say is like the perfect fit for you then? Like, is it a customer that, potentially already has a marketing team or doesn't have a team? Like what types of organizations like are you ideally wanting to partner with, since you're not a giant company by any means, right? You're like kind of
No, I'm not. But what I have cultivated over the years that I've been doing technology marketing is a whole slew of people that videographers, writers, bloggers, programmers, developers who work in this space. And so while I'm a pretty small shop, I subcontract to a lot of other companies that people may need access to. And so part of what my clients find helpful is that I can turn something around very quickly because I have access to a group of people that I've worked with for years, and I bring them with me and turn them on and turn them off as we need them.
Mm-hmm. So what is like your secret sauce then? It sounds like obviously some of your access to resources, your ability to scale and scale very quickly, but like, why do people hire you? What is that secret sauce that you provide?
Well, I have a really diverse background. I understand the landscape from a lot of different perspectives. I've worked in private sector, public sector now. I've been around the block, and I've probably, given that I work with companies that are in transition, chances are I've been through that transition, that type of transition before. And so whether they're preparing to raise venture capital money or they're competing in a new arena with a new kind of product and need to know how to ramp that up, or they're stepping into some sort of new environment, I've got the street cred to get them to their goals.
So what would you say some of those challenges are then that they might be facing before you partner up with them? Like what is that big thing that you're hearing in the market, or one of those big areas that they might be finding a gap in that you're solving for?
Well, for example, the last company that I worked with was a government contracting firm that was bought by a UK-based venture capital firm, and they do technology, more broadly, but they have a division that worked with the federal government. And because the company was bought by a foreign entity, there had to be a separation between the piece that worked with the federal government and the piece, that worked with the private sector. And so they needed to stand up a new operation. They needed to stand up everything. They did it's called foci mitigation, right? They had to mitigate that separation. And they needed to stand up a marketing organization. And so in that case, they did not have anything. They didn't have a marketing organization at all. So I came in and helped them stand it up, hire the people, establish the processes, figure out what marketing channels they needed to be working in, created their marketing budget, started down the track with them, with working with various media organizations that they might want to become partners with, and then handed it back to them so that they could run it. It's usually an 18 to 24 month cycle for something like that, where I'm coming into a new operation. But in previous situations, they have had a team, and but it was a younger, inexperienced team, and they needed me, or they had resources available, and they needed me to figure out, okay, of these people that we have to work with, which parts of them do we want to repurpose for marketing purposes, and how do we want to organize that organization, and who reports to who, and how do we what training do they need to get them started and up and running. And again, here's a marketing budget, here's the tools, these are the technologies that you want to work with, and these are the marketing channels that you want to target. And then I kind of push or guide people towards success in that area.
Gotcha. So it sounds like a little bit like PR, media training, distribution, helping to scale the teams, and also helping to scale the technology. So and
even things like these are the kinds of things that you would want to publish on your website about on an ongoing basis. Like, here's how you do e-newsletters. Like, here's how you establish a marketing database. Here's the tools that we're going to use to help you establish that marketing database. Here's a blogging strategy that you're going to want to execute against, going forward. Here's some resources that you may want to use to help you get her. And here's 5 examples of blogs that you're going to want to write. Here's the first 5. Now let's go work together to figure out the next 5, for example.
So content roadmaps, schedules, strategies.
Yep.
All in one kind of stop shop for sure.
Yep.
What's your perspective then for educating, someone on who Trish is, right? I know you've written a book, right? Like what's kind of your strategy for, making those connections and working with future businesses?
So most of my clients have come word of mouth. And I'm kind of at the point where I work with companies that I've vetted through my network and that have projects that are interesting to me. But I definitely work mostly through word of mouth, and I don't tend to, I let my network know, okay, I'm rolling off of this project and, I have a little time, but you said I wrote a book. I am writing a book now. So I will be publishing it at the end of 2023. So that's a big focus for me right now as well. I'm head down, being a writer and, figuring that out right now. And it's been really fun and challenging to do that as well.
Very exciting. Yes. What's the book about? Like, tell us a little bit about like where you're at. What's the focus of it?
So I've just been greenlit. So that means that I've written well enough so that the publisher has said, okay, we're going to take you on and we're going to move you to the next level. So, but the book is about, I've always been very involved in mentoring women, and I am interested in I wanted to take some of the lessons that I've learned through doing a startup, working for a big company, working for a small company, juggling, raising 3 children, and the various phases that you go through, what you think about as a woman developing a career in your 20s, what you think about as a woman developing your career in your 40s, what you think about, when you're a woman and you're pivoting to whatever your next thing is, because everyone pivots, right? Everyone is going to go through some sort of a pivot point in their life, and sometimes it's things that you can't control, and sometimes it's positive, and sometimes almost every woman that I've talked to has gotten to a point where they're like, okay, I want more control over this, whatever this is. And so I'm kind of wrapping it up together, putting a bow on it and handing it back to them and saying, okay, this is how I did it. And hopefully women can find themselves in that story.
Very cool. Well, first off, congrats on getting greenlit. That's very exciting. Headed to publishing, which is also very exciting. I'm sure there's a lot more work in between now and then, but it sounds like a great concept as well for you to write about, from your own perspective and telling your own story, kind of having and to have the the publishing company you're partnering with kind of back you on that and allow you to tell your story is really exciting. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So what's something you want to be celebrating like a year from now? Like March 2024, like Trish, what's something you'd be like, yeah, I'm glad I'm stoked I did that or was able to do this. Obviously publishing the book.
A book tour. Yeah, I was just going to say a book tour. I want to be celebrating a book tour. I would like to be continuing to work on interesting projects, and then be able to do, some travel on the side now that we're all able to get back out there and do that. I'm one of those people that's itching to do it. So that would be my list.
Very exciting. Yes. Yes. So what is one of the ways that I guess you're planning to grow and scale, your own business? Is that still a focus for you today, considering where you are with trying to publish a book too, and trying to get to where you are next year? Just kind of curious.
Yes, yeah, I definitely would. I also should say that I'm kind of interested in taking on a board position. So I think that I'm at the stage of my career where I can be of a lot of good use to companies that are interested in having a woman with a lot of experience on their board, especially a woman who understands technology. So I would probably put that on the celebration list for next year as well.
Just kind of curious, like, what is the top thing, like, that's a priority for you to like grow and scale your own business today?
Yeah, I guess a priority for me would be that there is I'm interested in continuing to work with entrepreneurs. And what I found is that, companies that are early stage and scrappy typically don't have budgets, big budgets to hire full-time resources. And so fractional using fractional CMO sort of resources, I think, is an interesting way of growing and developing your business. I only take on usually one big project at a time, and a couple of smaller ones, because when you're doing something that requires a timetable and a big transition, that's usually pretty all-encompassing. So I'm interested in, like a couple of big weighty projects and then smaller projects. So that help me sort of maintain that balance. Yeah, so I guess I'm open to a lot of different options, still in the B2B and B2G space.
Gotcha. Yeah, bandwidth is key for you.
Yeah, right.
I know you're getting pulled in a lot of different directions with this and in your book and day jobs and right. So definitely need to make sure you can kind of give your time, attention, and energy to
exactly.
So where can people find you? Like, what is the best way people can get a hold of you for the future?
So 3waysdigital.com is my website, and there's a way to contact me there. But on Twitter, I'm at TrishB1, Trish B as in Barber, 1, the number 1. And on LinkedIn, I'm Trish Barber.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here and a part of the Business Ninjas podcast. I'll make sure our team includes links to your website, your profiles, your socials, and to where people can find you so people can easily get a hold of you. And I feel like I've learned a lot about you and kind of like where your focus is from an organizational perspective, also how you're trying to get your brand out there, but also continue to grow your other companies' brands you're partnered with. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing your story on the Business Ninjas podcast. Thank you. Thank you, Max. It's been fun. Awesome. Yeah, good having you here and telling your story, and I appreciate that. So appreciate you being up here, and that wraps up another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast. Thanks everyone for listening, and have a great rest of the day.